So if you go to the U.S. Patent website, you can download the provisional patent form, and you can see that it's pretty easy to fill out. So I tell people, okay, you know, if you've done your market research, and you looked and saw what other patents are out there, and you're still convinced that you've got something fairly unique, file your provisional patent, because if you don't want to invest $125 to file your provisional yourself, how committed are you to what you're doing, right? File that. And I even tell faculty, you know, faculty, they love to like publish a paper or go out, run off to a conference, and I tell them, where is your patent condom? Do you have a provisional yet? Before you go presenting your idea. So it's a minimum level of protection, and it's what you want to do to get yourself started in the process. And you'll see from my flow chart up here that this is the flow chart that I have on my website, and it talks about, you know, here's the process for the tech transfer office here to make decisions about, okay, here's the idea from the faculty member or from the student. They file an invention disclosure form, and my invention disclosure form is on the website also. Gives me background information about who you've talked to, if you got a grant for it, have you published this, is it on the website, what have you. You file the invention disclosure because you guys are going to do that. And what that does is it starts the process. So I work with you, and we then evaluate the technology for its patent ability and any commercial potential. Then we decide whether we're going to file a provisional patent, or you're going to work with other inventors, discuss other options like a full patent. You do marketing research, and then you have a pretty good clue as to whether you've got something or not. So we said that in the first question, you can do I have a good idea? How do I protect it? And then the third most frequently asked question is, how do I go find money for it, right? So the great thing that you guys have in your generation is you have this thing called the internet that, let's see, who invented the internet? Al Gore? Okay. Al Gore invented this internet thing for you, okay? So you have the internet, and that means you can do an awful lot of market research. It means you can do your patent searching. It means you can do patent filings. And also, a lot of people right now are using the internet to go find funding. So that you know about crowdfunding, and you know that you can go and look at financial capital providers on their websites. So you have more access to capital, right, and more information right now in your generation than previous generations trying to start businesses. You can go find out who's got financial resources, and where are the venture capitalists, and where are they partying tonight, so you can go make a pitch to them, right? Now, just because you can find them, how do you know whether they're legitimate and whether you want to work with them, okay? So, for example, with crowdfunding, they're just now starting to pass legislation that requires investors that are in crowdfunding situations that they have to get qualified. So, if you're an investor and you want to actually invest in people's ideas, you should be a qualified and registered investor, and there's a certification process that they have to go through. So, for example, and several of my friends are professional investors, and so they have their entire financial assets, submitted to the SEC so that they're qualified and they're not just running around with a business card talking to students at a pitch. They actually have to commit how much of their personal income they have available, what stock they have, what board positions they have. There's a whole process for them to get certified. My advice to you is make sure that anybody you're talking to is a qualified professional investor. So a lot of times when you go to these big events, these big competitions and that type of thing, you'll see people who give you their business cards, and anybody can go buy a nice business card and design them and print them out in your hotel room. But you want to make sure that they're qualified investors. And there's ways on the internet that you can search that. For you, probably your best source is to start working with some of the better-known angel investor networks right here in Southern California. And so I have known for years a group called Maverick Angels, and we brought Maverick Angels on campus, and we're going to be bringing them again in probably January or February, and have them on campus. And so what a lot of the investors do is they form an angel network or group. And what they do is, hey, I like this idea, you like this idea, let's go in this together, okay? And they know each other, and they know that they're qualified, and they've done deals with each other in the past. So that's a really good resource for you. So Maverick Angels is around, Tech Coast Angels is around, there's several groups out there. And some groups actually specialize in certain types of technology. So there's groups around that will specialize just in investing in clean tech, or just in cybersecurity, that type of thing. So some of them specialize, and some of them are more general. Maverick Angels is pretty general. And the same thing, so one of the questions I get frequently is, what's the difference between getting my money from crowdfunding, getting it from an angel, and getting it from a venture capitalist? So, used to be, in the old days, there were venture capital funds starting around Silicon Valley, and they invested in high-tech companies, and they were interested in new ideas, and they were willing to assume risk, take on some risk. Maybe this technology will work, maybe it won't. Pretty much today, 35, 40 years later, what you've got is a lot of venture capital funds that really aren't interested in startups. They're not really interested in taking on that kind of risk. Generally, what happens is companies that have already been around for a while, what we call mezzanine funding, will go to venture capital funds once they've been around for a while. Or if you're a well-known entrepreneur that has a track record, then you might be able to get an audience at a venture capital fund. But they bring more resources to the table than you might need at the beginning, and they're very expensive because they'll take a lot of equity, and they tend to be very risk averse. So they do a certain type of deal. So generally, unless you're coming out of Stanford and you've developed something in your dorm room, and your dad happens to be a well-known IP attorney, you're not going to get an appointment at a venture capital fund. So you're looking more at angel investors. And as I said, angel investors might specialize in something, or they might be more general, and they have events. And sometimes they have events where they'll allow people to come in and pitch their ideas in an open forum. So it's just open, you can come in. And sometimes you have to be invited in. Now, a lot of investors out there will say, here's what I'll do. I'll invest in you, and then I'll introduce you to other investors, and I'll help you work on your pitch to them. And then they'll either charge you for that, or they'll take a big equity chunk because they're going to help you with your pitch. Okay. Well, remember how just a few minutes ago I talked to you about small business development centers? Okay, well, you can go into a small business development center and they'll help you with your business plan, they'll help you with your pitch. Maybe you won't get as sophisticated a source, or maybe you really like that angel investor, but to give away valuable equity for somebody to help you with your pitch may not be the best use of your equity. When I talk about equity, when you file your company, and let's say you incorporate and you get equity, which are shares of stock back to you. Shares of stock, you'll get issued so many when you incorporate. They tend to be, you get a big pile of stock, and you distribute it to the attorney that helped you, and to your uncle that helped you, and etc. Tends to be something that I find with startup companies, they tend to give away pretty freely. Oh yeah, I'll give you equity in my company if you'll help me out with this. Oh, will you help me file a patent, and I don't have any money, but I'll pay you in equity. The problem with that is when serious investors come along later on, they actually have to pay off and buy back that stock. So a lot of times what happens is more serious investors won't be interested in you because you've distributed your shares of your company out to friends and family, And they then have to go negotiate and pay off each one of those. And so your deal becomes what we call unmarketable. Okay, nobody else wants to get involved in doing that. A lot of small businesses do that. A lot of startups do that. And then they can't figure out why they can't get serious investors and raise that next level of funding, because that investor or investors would have to then go off and take care of everybody else who got a piece of it. So it's nice to give it to your uncle and your friends and family, but you need to really think that this is very serious to get some kind of equity in the company and not to do it freely, because you'll need those shares when you have to go raise serious money. So then we have this option of crowdfunding. And I wish I could tell you that I really, truly understand crowdfunding, but I don't think anybody really and truly understands crowdfunding yet. It's still being evaluated. So basically crowdfunding says, oh, you want to make a pitch? Well, you could go on the internet and you can get, instead of getting 3 angel investors involved, you can get 3,000 people who only pay you, $2 to make an investment in your company. The problem with crowdfunding is, again, now somebody who's serious and wants to put in several $1 million into your company has to go buy off all those people, okay? So the concept itself sounds good in theory, but the reality is that crowdfunding, the SEC is looking at the legality of it, because these people are not, that would give you $5 for your investment, are not these qualified professional investors, first of all. Second of all, a serious investor that is going to give you a lot more money then has to go pay off all these people. And that's a difficult process and something that, quite frankly, many of them don't want to do. So crowdfunding sounds good at your early stages, but it can actually be problematic if you want to grow the company. A lot of times, one of the things I talk to groups about is looking at, and as young entrepreneurs, you guys need to really look into this, is finding free money. Okay, free money's nice. So where do you find free money besides, Dad's checkbook? Of course, in my case, it was never free. But what free money could be a grant. Okay, so people think of grants as being more for research. But you'll find that a lot of agencies, and in particular nonprofit foundations and things, are really interested in providing grants to young entrepreneurs. So before you go selling out equity, and before you go trying to raise money, or going to the bank, or getting your parents to mortgage their house, look at what kind of grants you might be able to qualify for. And so with a grant, there's basically, they will ask for something in return, and a lot of times what they ask for is to document the process that you went through. So for example, if you look at a lot of student business plan competitions, they'll say you can get $10,000, but actually if you look at it, what they're doing is they're giving you a grant for $10,000. So what do they want in return? They want some kind of information back from you about the technology or about the process. Like, for example, a lot of private foundations that give out grants to young entrepreneurs, what they really want is they want information from you back about the entrepreneur process. Here's how we did it. We went out and we did market research and we patented it, and they're collecting data, okay, while at the same time that they're supporting young entrepreneurs. So look at free money, that's always good. There's a lot of government grants out there, so private foundations are one source, and then there's government grants. So if you want to go look at government grants, you can go to a website called www.grants.gov. Now, the good news with grants.gov is when they set this up a few years back, they thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could put every grant opportunity for anything at all into one master database? And in theory, that looks good. The problem with it is you get in there and you can really get overwhelmed because there's just so much in there. So you have to really think through some good keywords and try to find some grant opportunities. Now, I mentioned grants to you because not only is it great that it's free money, but Once you leave the hollowed halls here at Cal Poly Pomona, you may not be able to qualify for the kind of grants you can do while you're here. So research grants and collaborating with faculty. So grants are good if you can collaborate with your faculty and get you some funding to work together on a project. And once you leave here and you graduate, those doors are not, you're not a student any longer. And you don't have access to the faculty any longer. So use the opportunity while you're here on campus to especially look for educational grants, okay? So what are some other funding sources that you guys have run into? Because I really want to sort of start opening up to some questions from you guys. What have you got? Have any of you guys played with crowdfunding? Have any of you guys looked at grants? Where are you thinking about getting your money from? And have any of you made pitches to investors? And what do you learn from it?
Well, I'm working with a former business partner, and we were trying to do a nonprofit earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But now what I'm thinking about doing is having a cooperative between nonprofit and for-profit,
Mm-hmm.
where we use a nonprofit because we're trying to push an educational service, which we see a lot of potential for getting help for the local area for educational services, for grants.
Right.
And plan to use that money to buy products from the for-profit.
Mm-hmm.
That's the idea.